What if most people aren't losing at life because they're bad players, but because they're playing a different game than the one actually being played? There's a quiet assumption most of us carry without ever inspecting it, that life has rules, and not just rules, but known rules. Imagine, just for a moment, that you are standing in front of a massive complex steel vault door. This is your life, your career, your legacy. You have a stethoscope pressed against the cold metal. Your eyes are squeezed shut in concentration, and you are spinning the dial with absolute precision. You are listening for the faint click of the tumblers falling into place. You are working harder than anyone else to crack this code. You are obsessing over the mechanism, refining your touch, perfecting your technique. Keep this image in your mind. What if I told you that you've been losing at a game you didn't know you were playing, and the people beating you, they're not smarter, they're not working harder, they're just reading from a different instruction manual than the one you were handed at birth. 8 billion people wake up every morning, roll invisible dice, and move across a board that nobody can fully see. Some think they're playing chess, others think it's poker. A few are convinced it's solitaire. And here's the uncomfortable truth. They might all be wrong, or all be right. Because life, unlike any game you'll find on a shelf, doesn't come shrink-wrapped with rules printed on the inside of the lid. We try to define it, of course. We project structure onto the chaos. The biological imperative, maybe the game's evolution. Pass the genes, survive the winter, protect the lineage. The spiritual quest, maybe the game's enlightenment. Transcend suffering, dissolve the ego. The material pursuit, maybe the game is accumulation. Mass wealth, high score wins. The legacy play, maybe it's about continuity, immortality through impact, escaping the gravity of being forgotten, or perhaps it is just short-sighted practicality. Pay the rent, eat, survive to see the sun rise tomorrow. You may not define it this simply, but even if you deny the game, you are on the board. Here's what makes this interesting. You're not wrong if you pick any of these, and you're not right either. Because unlike Monopoly, unlike chess, unlike any game with a finite rulebook, life doesn't tell you what victory looks like. You have to decide that for yourself. But let's go deeper. Because even if you've chosen your definition of winning, you quickly discover that life isn't one game. It's a Russian nesting doll of games, each one containing another, going down until you hit something atomic. Say your game is wealth. Inside that sits the game of earning. Inside earning, the game of investing. Inside investing, the game of patience. Inside patience, the game of emotional control. Each layer with its own invisible rules. Each layer with players who've figured out something you haven't. Or say your game is longevity. Now you're playing the sub-games of nutrition, of sleep architecture, of stress management, of relationships, because isolation kills as surely as cigarettes. Games, within games, each one influencing the others in ways you can barely trace. In soccer, 8 billion humans understand the rules instantly. Kick the ball into the net, don't use your hands. The field is this size, the match lasts this long. Simple. So competition becomes about execution. Technique, speed, physical gifts you either have or don't. But in the mini games of life, the rules aren't posted anywhere. They're not agreed upon. They shift depending on who you ask, when you ask, where you're standing when the question lands. So what separates the players who seem to glide through, accumulating wins like they're magnetized, from everyone else grinding away with nothing to show for it? I would propose a possibility. The difference between the average player and the outlier isn't usually skill. It isn't that the outlier grinds harder. The distinction lies in game perception. Most people compete on skill within rules they assume are true. The outliers compete by discovering that the rules others are playing by are actually optional or outdated or completely imaginary. Consider the arena of marketing. If we treat it like a structured game, we might agree. TV commercials are the rule. If we agree on that, then we are just competing on skill. Who makes the funnier ad? Who hires the better actor? We are fighting over milliseconds of execution. But then take someone like Gary Vaynerchuk. While everyone else is polishing their TV scripts, he is playing a completely different variation of the game. He perceives the rule of TV as obsolete. He bets on the rule of social. Even deeper, he challenges the scoring system. Player A says, the rule is ROI. I spend $1, I must get $2 back immediately. Gary says, the rule is brand. I spend $1 to live in your head forever. Even if I don't get the dollar back today. They are both ostensibly playing marketing, but player A is playing checkers and Gary is playing 4D chess. You cannot compare their skill because they are betting on fundamentally different physics of the universe. This brings us to the ultimate example, Elon Musk, standing undeniably apart from other entrepreneurs, far past the point where we can simply attribute it to luck. People obsess over him. They dissect his morning routine. They analyze his management style. They look for the skill that makes him win. And what do they find? Contradictions. Some say it's his resilience. Some say it's his first principles thinking. Some say it's his tolerance for risk. If you asked Musk himself, he might give you a simplistic answer that makes you say, oh, I can do that. Or he might give you a rambling, infinite list of variables that makes you say, what the hell? The truth is, most winners have no idea why they actually won. It is the curse of the historian to look backward and create a narrative that makes sense. The past is fixed, but our interpretation of it is fluid. Here is the hypothesis. Elon isn't playing the same game as everyone else. He isn't trying to improve the internal combustion engine by 10%. That is a competition of skill. He is looking at the rulebook of how cars are made and realizing that half the chapters were written by people who are dead or wrong. He stands as an example of the disproportionate return on investment of understanding the rules versus improving your play within inferior rules. And that might be the most valuable thing a person can do. Not practice harder at the wrong game, but discover which game is actually being played. We are obsessed with better. We want to be better writers, better coders, better investors. Better implies you are running on the same track as everyone else, just trying to move your legs faster. But what if the track leads off a cliff? What if the ladder you are climbing, rung by rung, with sweat and tears, is leaning against the wrong wall? The most dangerous player isn't the one with the fastest swing. It's the one who realizes the wind has changed direction. So, what is the actionable move here? It's counterintuitive. In a world that screams, hustle, grind, go faster, the winning move might be to stop. It might be worth taking that 1 hour walk. No headphones, no podcast telling you how to think, just silence. And you ask yourself the terrifying questions. What if I am wrong about everything? What are the invisible rules I am following just because everyone else is? What is the actual game I am playing? Most of us are playing games of status or games of safety. We are optimizing our performance in a game we don't even like. That 1 hour of thinking, of staring at the ceiling and questioning the very physics of your daily life, may go further in distinguishing you from the rest of the players than any 100 hours of mindless grind ever could. But that 1 hour of genuine interrogation, of stepping outside the maze to look at its architecture from above, might reposition you more than any amount of effort within the maze ever could. So perhaps the metagame, the game that contains all the other games, isn't about winning at all, not in the way we usually mean. Perhaps it's about developing the ability to see the games for what they are, to notice when you're competing for prizes that don't actually matter to you, to recognize when you've inherited rules that were written for someone else's board, to sit with the discomfort of uncertainty long enough, the new patterns begin to emerge. Because everyone else is playing. That's not optional. From the moment you opened your eyes, you were a piece on a board you didn't choose. The only choice you get is how consciously you play. And the players who seem to move differently, the ones who accumulate outcomes that look like luck until you notice the pattern, they might simply be the ones who stopped long enough to ask the question everyone else is too busy to wonder, what if the game I'm playing isn't the game I should be playing? And maybe that's the answer nobody wants to hear. that all your optimization, all your strategy, all your grinding away at improvement, it might matter far less than the hour you spend staring at the ceiling, asking whether you've even been reading the right rulebook. 8 billion players, one board nobody fully sees, and somewhere in the mess of all these overlapping games, there's a version of victory with your name on it, if you can figure out which game it actually belongs to. So the next time you feel behind, the next time someone else seems to be gliding while you're struggling, consider the possibility that they haven't figured out how to play better. They've just figured out what game they're actually playing. We spend our lives trying to master the mechanics. We want the cheat codes. We want the hacks. We want to be the best at spinning the dial. But let's go back to that vault door we imagined at the start. There you are, sweating, listening, spinning the dial. You have spent 10 years learning how to pick this lock. You are the best lock picker in the world. You are exhausted, but you are dedicated. But if you had taken that moment to stop, to step back, and to question the nature of the game itself, you might have realized something that the grinders never will. You might have reached out, tried the handle, and realized the vault was unlocked the entire time.